It is overtime here again at Old Favorite Friday, and I've got something really interesting this week that I came across at a little liquor store in Boca Raton. They tend to have some very esoteric kind of beers, some older beers on the shelves. It's usually not a good thing, but in this case, it was a really, really cool thing. So if any of you guys have already looked at here, and you can see this Green Flash bottle, this is the Green Flash Grand Cru. Now, if you're a beer nerd like me, you probably loved Green Flash back in the early 2000s as they grew and become a powerhouse behind something called West Coast IPA and many other incredible beers. But you also might know that this brewery doesn't really exist for all intent and purposes anymore. I think some of their assets are owned by another company that sells maybe West Coast IPA still in production somewhere. But back in 2018, this brewery essentially closed. And not only did the brewery close in 2018, so we're talking about 8 years ago, this beer, this Grand Cru, was last brewed in 2012. And I found it on the store shelves in early 2026. Now, usually I'd be terrified of a beer like that, picking that up and drinking it. That's a bad idea. But this is a Belgian Dark Strong Ale. So I figured, listen, I'll give it a try. And also, I loved Green Flash. And things like Freak, which was like a hoppy triple they used to do, their double stout. These are just ones I'm thinking of off the top of my head. I wanted to get my hands on anything Green Flash made because it was always so high quality. So when I saw this, I'm like, I've never got a chance to talk about Green Flash on Old Favorite Friday. So worst case scenario, the beer's average, I could talk a little bit about Green Flash and talk about it for Old Favorite Friday. Give me an opportunity to do something I wish I could have done a long time ago. But I got this beer and it's really good. It turned out shockingly well for a beer that is now, 14 years old. And I talk about bottle conditioning all the time. I don't know if this was bottle conditioning or not. I have an assumption it might have been, but maybe a partial bottle conditioning. I don't have that information. But at the end of the day, it was packaged well to the point that this dark strong ale was able to develop complexity over time. And the beer itself, when it was young, was very hop forward. Green Flash was a West Coast brewery that was really known for doing, I just mentioned the Freak, which was a very hop forward triple. West Coast IPAs was one of the first really great West Coast IPAs and really featured high bitterness. So when they did a beer like this, a Belgian Dark Strong Ale, which very few people would do, highly hopped, they did that. So when this beer was young, and I'm going to give some tasting notes and stuff here, but this really isn't about the tasting notes of this beer. You can't go out and buy this unless I think I got the last 4-pack at the liquor store that I was at. But you're very unlikely to find this beer out there in the wild. So tasting notes aren't as important for this one, especially in a 14-year-old beer. But originally it was much more bitter. The bitterness has softened almost to be completely gone, which is to be expected. And I'm still, though, getting that spice box, a little bit of clove, a little bit of star anise. I'm still getting a little bit of Belgian candy sugar and fig. It's a really good beer, and it has held up remarkably well, not only for being as old as it is, but also for being on the bottom shelf of a liquor store for a very, very long time. Usually if you have a 14-year-old beer and it's in a temperature-controlled area or in a fridge, I know my partner Bill McPhee ages beers like this all the time, and it's routine to have a 10, 15-year-old beer. The fact that this is still drinkable, I think, says two things. One, this was a really good beer when it was produced. It was only produced for a few years. I think it first came out in 2008, I think it was, when I did some research on it. It was only produced for a few years. It was wildly popular. But the fact that it was able to still stand the test of time in this way is really impressive. And the second thing is it shows the skill of a brewer and a brewery to package something so well and to have as little dissolved oxygen in the beer that will oxidate the beer over time and really lead to off flavors and not allow it to age as well as it has. And just in general, just the quality of the product that Green Flash was putting out. Now, as I mentioned, I couldn't find it anywhere, but I believe they were sold to a company in 2022 or something like that, the same company that owns Terrapin. And I thought that some of the West Coast IPA was still being produced somewhere. I'd love to get my hands on it if it's still anywhere near as good as it used to be, but that's just not something we have access to in South Florida. So maybe if I'm doing my travels, I'll come across it. I can pick that up and I can do it for Old Favorite Friday. But this is just a great time capsule for early 2000s brewing. This was a hit brewery. They were at one point, I think, around 30 or 40 highest producing breweries in the nation. They had tons of hype over special releases, and everyone wanted to get their hands on their beers. And unfortunately, just the nature of the business fell off over the years. And They're not really around, at least in the form that allows us to have stuff like this. It's so iconic in my opinion, and so it speaks so much to like my history in the craft beer industry. So I love getting a chance to talk about Green Flash, and it's really cool to see. I preach all the time about beers that can be age worthy, and then to see it in practice for a beer that's not mine. I have no personal investment into it. I just had a chance to try it and said, wow, this still tastes really, really good. I'm going to be happy to blow the dust off these bottles if you can see it, which is adorable, and drink these soon. I'm not going to age these another 5 years. I don't think that's going to do well for the beer. And I think maybe if I tried this beer 3 years ago, it would be even better. It's definitely on the kind of a downturn, but it is a fantastic Belgian Dark Strong Ale, 9.1%. Has all the flavors you're looking for, and the fact that it had that hop backbone in the beginning probably really helped its age worthiness. I always try to do food and beer pairings here. Once again, this is not a beer you're going to run out and try this weekend, but I think jerk chicken would be really good with this beer as it stands now. Specifically, you have these really developed spice box kind of flavors. I think that would be brought out by jerk chicken, and it still has some body to it. It's 9.1% alcohol. You get some of the sweetness in the fig and raisin. There's no residual sugar in here, but you have those sweet fruit flavors, which I think would lend really well to jerk chicken. And I think a Belgian Dark Strong Ale in general can go with that, but this more aged version of it I think would go really, really well together. In general, I can't tell you to go pick this beer up, as I've probably stated more times than I need to, but if you are lucky enough and you do see if West Coast IPA is really out there in the market and you have access to it, go pick it up. And I'd love to hear if you've had that beer recently. Does it still stand up? Does it still have the quality that it used to have? I'd love to hear about that. And also, if you've got any old Green Flash bottles laying around in the cellar anywhere and you've had one recently, or you having the kind of experience that I've had by having this beer, this blast from the past. So love to hear about that from you guys. Love to hear other beers you'd like me to do for Old Favorite Friday in the future. I'd also love a click, a like, subscribe to the channel, and so you can see all the content and all these great beers that we're talking about and these great classic breweries that we give a chance to give a little bit of love to, even though they're not around in their previous form. But other than that, we'll see you next time. Cheers.